Members, we've already formed a quorum. Let's start. Welcome to today's meeting. Mr. Lam Tai Fai cannot chair today's meeting, so I'll chair the meeting on his behalf until he arrives. In fact, we have quite many items today. I hope that in a moment, when you speak, you can be concise and precise. Item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of October has already been distributed to you. The Secretariat has not received any proposal for amendment. I'd like to invite you to have the minutes confirmed. Any questions? If not, the minutes are confirmed. Since the last meeting, a number of information papers have been distributed to us. Altogether, 4 of them. All of them have been set out on the agenda. Do you have any special questions on that? Please take a look at those questions. Then we can proceed to the next item. Our next meeting will be held on the 9th of December, a Monday. The administration has proposed 3 items. One is the Robertson Road Yinghua Girls School redevelopment, and then injection into the language fund, and then support for schools for electronic textbook to facilitate studying and online management. So these are the 3 items for the next meeting. Any questions? If not, we'll discuss these 3 items at the next meeting. All right, let's proceed to today's major items of discussion. As a routine, I'd like to remind you that in accordance of 83A of the Rules of Procedure, if any member has any direct or indirect pecuniary interest with any of the discussion items, they should make a declaration before the discussion. All right, please invite the government officials and representatives of the Vocational Training Council to enter the conference room. As we have a very tight schedule today, I'd like to see if the Bureau or the VTC have anything to supplement. If there's no supplement, I don't think we need an introduction on the papers. Under Secretary, any supplement on the papers? Mr. Chairman, no special supplement. I think we'd listen to members first before responding. Members, any questions? Any questions on the agenda item on the Vocational Training Council? Not for the time being. Round 1. Mr. Charles Mok. All right, longer for you then, 4 minutes. Mr. Chairman, the paper mentions supportive measures for certain curricula, in particular for injection of resources in terms of IT and security. I very much support the proposals. Perhaps the Bureau and the VTC can explain to us how they arrived at these priorities. Well, apart from investment in IT, the paper also mentions a longitudinal study. For this longitudinal study, we've actually received certain views, some of which doubt whether or not this is the most appropriate way to go about it. It seems that they're studying into themselves. Well, the sum proposed is not too huge, but not too little either. So I'd like to know how you arrived at $176 million. Is this sufficient? And if outsiders are involved, will it be enough? If outsiders are to do it, will there be more independence? And can the outcome be disclosed to the public? Well, I don't want them to study themselves and then say that there are no problems. Since we're using public money, we do need to play a monitoring role. Can you answer these questions first? Under Secretary? Mr. Chairman, concerning the detailed plans for IT, I'll defer to the VTC colleagues in a moment. But I'd like to supplement on the longitudinal study first. Well, it's nothing like studying into themselves or inspect themselves. We just want to, through the study, to improve VTC training programs and the contents, such that graduates of the new senior secondary school curriculum can benefit. So if the VTC is to conduct the study, it will be able to improve its training programs as well as their structure. Upon the completion of the study, the content of the report will be made public, such that other training institutions will be able to make use of the information therein, such that other stakeholders conducting training programs can also make improvement. As regards the composition of the group, whether or not it is sufficient, whether or not the pay is enough, etc., etc., I'll defer to the VTC. Who will answer? Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his questions. May I first say something about the IT systems? In a moment, my colleague will speak on the longitudinal study. In the paper, we mentioned that IT is ever advancing. Internally, we've also conducted certain studies, and outside experts also advised us that we need to do a lot more in a number of areas. For example, in paragraph 3, we set out points A, B, and C. Given the IT advancement, we'll work towards those 3 goals, that is to support e-learning and any computer systems that are needed for these online studies and services. And security measures will also be looked into. So we'd like to improve the IT infrastructure involved. I wonder whether this answer is sufficient. I can further elaborate if necessary. As for the longitudinal study, my colleague, Professor Chong, can supplement. Yes, members may have further questions, and you can answer in due course. Dr. Priscilla Leung, Mr. Wu Chi-wai, and I are queuing up. 3 minutes each, because we don't have enough time. And Mr. Chan Kam Lam as well. Dr. Elizabeth Quat as well. And Mr. Charles Mock is queuing up for our second round. Dr. Priscilla Leung? Yes, Mr. Chairman. Well, everybody can win in his or her respective field. The longitudinal study is good, but we're talking about a huge sum of money covering 2 major areas, research and IT.
I can see that many many VTC graduates are doing well, even though they are not university graduates. In like 10 years' time, they may be earning more than university graduates, or even have comparable income with master's degree or doctorate degree holders. Now, your programs may be inadequate. They may not be able to cope with all the industrial and market needs. In relation to the age, when you say students, will they include some older students? Well, there may be students or people in the middle age, or those who have been unemployed and now they need more learning. So do they or are they included in your current training programs? What are your views about IT and research funding breakdown? Thank you, Dr. Leung, for your question. Let me comment on IT. This time, we would like members to endorse two funding proposals. Para 14A, if you talk about IT infrastructure, we're asking for funding of 67 million. About the longitudinal study, the details are in Para 15. The details of the longitudinal study can be explained by Professor Chong. Professor Chong, thank you, Dr. Leung, for your question. If you refer to Para 10 of the paper, there are explanations about the target of the research. The full-time students will be the targets. For example, the Hong Kong DSE graduates and some who have completed our degree programs. So they are our targets. So if they are part-time students, then they are not included this time. That may be the topic of the future. And under the new academic structure, the graduates are our targets. So basically, graduates of the new academic structure will be our targets. We would like to see how we can help them. I would like to follow up. Sorry, Dr. Leung. I am referring to those who have changed to other industry and they are now studying. I think you have to wait for your next turn. Mr. Wu, thank you, Chairman. Concerning longitudinal study on Hong Kong DSE graduates, I agree to the direction. But I am rather surprised. Why does VTC want to establish a full-time team to do this? This is not easy to understand. If you look at the scope of the study, it is just typical university academic study. And I can't see why this cannot be taken up by university research team. What is the difference? What are the reasons that this approach has to be adopted? Thank you, Chairman. Professor Chong, thank you, member, for the question. If you refer to Para 10 of the paper, you can see that our major targets are graduates under the new academic structure. In 2013-14, we will do a random survey of the students. So it is going to be a longitudinal study all the way till their graduation. So there are 2,000 DSE students in 2013-14, and there are 500 degree students. So we will keep track of their learning until their graduation. Now, DSE means 2 years, degree programs mean 4 years. And there is the second batch. So we have to follow up on a large number of students over a long period of time. If we ask our teachers to do this study, well, there's not enough manpower because we're talking about long-term follow-up over or on a large number of students. We have taken reference from similar studies in overseas universities. They also employ full-time researchers for such a study. Sorry, Chairman. I think we all understand the study methodology. We understand that longitudinal study will need more manpower and resources, but we have to be accountable to the public. You said that there will be random survey or random sampling. Does this mean that this kind of longitudinal study cannot be taken up by universities? We have research teams in so many universities. So why isn't that possible? Why do you want to set up a team under VTC? That's my question. You have to convince me that this is already the most economical and most less time-consuming way. We have considered whether contracting out should be the approach, but it doesn't mean that VTC can just not involve. So I think it depends on the outsourcing structure. If we're talking about two-layer contracting out, we may not be able to grasp the price that well. And in the study, this is a long-term study. There may be some changes. We may not be able to tell the future results. When there are changes, if we have to change the contract all the way, then there will be a lot of difficulties. We're talking about vocational training. That's the subject of the study. In VTC, there are many experts who are familiar with vocational study. They are capable of carrying out such study. They are also very willing to do this study. Okay, thank you. My turn now. I want to follow up on Mr. Wu Chi-wai's question. Today, there are two topics. On IT, I don't have many comments about the study. I have received from the chairman of the Teaching Staff Association of VTC. He put forth some views. He has reservations about the study. First, why is it necessary to set up a full-time team in the council to carry out the study? Is this the most effective way with the best value for money? He thinks that VTC is not a research institute. So in terms of research capability, such a big amount of funding may not be well utilized for this study. So this may become a super luxurious study. On the 20th of June, there's an internal meeting, and this point was raised. The management explained why a team should be set up internally instead of outsourcing. That's because confidentiality must be upkept, and they're worried about quality. So overall speaking, their association is worried that this may not be the most effective. And they may be, this may become a study that will just comment all the good points of themselves. So can some comments be given to these views of the association? Professor Chong. Thank you, Chairman, for your question. Regarding this study, over a time span of 6 to 7 years, well, there's a well-established procedure. At the beginning of 2013, we had this concept, and many analyses have been done. We have communicated with the staff before coming up with this suggestion. In June, there were at least 2 communications with our staff. Every time 200 staff members attended the session. Some colleagues may have different views. This is only natural, because different colleagues will have different views, and we have already explained our view. In the 2 communication sessions, most colleagues didn't have objections. So we have communicated with our colleagues, and is the purpose of this study to beautify VTC? The purpose is not to look at past performance of VTC. We want to know how different aspects of vocational training can help the Hong Kong DSE graduates. So this is a forward-looking study. It is not for the sake of VTC. Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chairman. I think many colleagues are concerned about the longitudinal study. Should VTC set up an internal team to do this, or should this be outsourced? Now, I don't think money is a concern. Is it true that there are already a lot of reasons to carry this out internally, so you don't need to compare the amount of expenditure involved? We don't know the expenditure of outsourcing, right? Maybe outsourcing is even more expensive. I don't know whether VTC has compared that. Now, para 15 stated 5 years. So this team will work for 5 years on this longitudinal study, and after that it will be disbanded. So this money is for 5 years. So in other words, this is going to be a time frame of 5 years, right? Professor Chung, thank you, member, for the question. In para 15, it is stated that from 2013, from the batch of students in 2013, all the way till around 2019. Those graduates graduating in 2019, so 6 school years will be involved, and people will be recruited, and then there will be the research report to be compiled. So the whole process may last 6 years. We are very cautious. We know that public money should not be wasted. We're careful in calculating or assessing the amount of manpower. We're talking about 5,000 students. Some study for 2 years, some 4 years. And so many students have to be involved in questionnaire, survey and focus group studies, so the amount of manpower involved will be huge. We hope that the studies will be of quality. We don't want them to be just quickly finished. Vocational training is very important now. I hope that more lights can be shed on vocational training. Do we have some information on outsourcing? Is there a price comparison? We haven't done outsourcing yet, but we have considered it. When we outsource, it doesn't mean that VTC can put everything aside. We need people to monitor the overall progress. Chairman, I don't know whether VTC can offer some estimates so that we can know whether more or less money will be spent, and is it worthwhile for more money to be spent. Just now, a number of factors are spelled out. Perhaps doing it internally may be advantageous, but we have to know the amount of money involved. Professor Chung, can you give the information? Just now, Mr. Mong also asked the question as to how we have come up with the calculation. Now, Professor Chung, because we are running out of time, so let's be more focused. Do you have any estimate on the expenditure of outsourcing? No, we haven't. Okay, so the question is answered. We can explain why we need so much manpower. Okay, if necessary, if colleagues want to ask about that, that can be answered later on. Mr. Chan, thank you, Chairman. It seems that 3 minutes may not be enough for Professor Chung to give all the information. I also work in the universities, and during vetting, a lot of details have to be covered. We are talking about 19 million, 20 million. Usually in the applications, there are so many data, and the thickness of a questionnaire is 1 foot. So we're talking about very detailed vetting. This is a 2-page application asking members to approve 19.4 million to set up a team. I think we need more strong evidence. Well, Chairman, this afternoon I taught in the university study methodology. There's a Professor Kwun Ngai, and he worked on the suicide incidents in FuseCon, and then 1,000 odd workers are involved in that study. He interviewed 500, 600 people. I don't believe that $10 odd million was spent on that very meaningful survey. So I am using that yardstick to consider. From an academic point of view, this is really a luxurious project, a very high price tag. Para 12 states that people participating in the study will be on a voluntary basis. The Council will encourage students to take part and to reduce turnover.
Are you prepared to provide economic incentives for students to continue to take part in this longitudinal study? Can you give us more details? Let me make myself clear. I have reservation. I would like to have more information from the Bureau. So please elaborate on paragraph 12. Mr. Chairman, please do not forget we're talking about 6 school years, spending $3 million per year. And this study is to be conducted in Hong Kong. Hong Kong wages are at quite a level, so we cannot casually and randomly save money. Say we have 5 people with 1 executive assistant taking up management, and then there's a leader for the study, that is an assistant professor. Under the UGC, the assistant professor's salary is at around the midpoint. So basic wages, basic salary plus allowance equals the total pay. Now, we don't want to be too harsh to the researchers. As for students, how can we maintain their commitment throughout the study so that they'll continue to help us? We haven't thought of economic benefits because we're talking about public money. When the VTC conducts such studies, as we have teachers and students, we explain to them that this study will benefit the long-term objectives of Hong Kong in the hope that we can bring in students to help us. And in the VTC, we have a group of teachers. I believe it's easier for them to find the students. Next, Dr. Elizabeth Kwok and 4 more members would like to speak. Fernando Chung, Helena Wong, Tommy Chung, and Leung Yu Chung. For these 4 members, can I suggest 1 minute each for their questions, and then I'll ask the Bureau to respond as a whole. How many minutes, Mr. Chairman? Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. I understand, but our time is really limited. That's why I was consulting you. According to our rules, for the first round, each member should be entitled to the same amount of time. For rounds 3 and 4, say, you can group them together. Well, I may not need 10 minutes even if you give me 10. Well, point taken. Well, then we may overrun. All right, 3 minutes each then. I'll draw a line there. So the final speaker will be Mr. Leung Yu Chung. Dr. Elizabeth Kwok. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 2 questions concerning the enhancement of the IT plan and to support online services. I don't have strong comments. But then for vocational training and consultative services, I'd like to know how IT systems can be used in placement counseling for students. What about other tertiary institutions? Do they have similar applications? I hope the Secretary and the VTC can explain. And then all along, we're pursuing this longitudinal study. For the Education Bureau, what about other subvented institutions? Do you also subsidize their longitudinal studies? If so, which universities have done so and how much resources have been spent? Mr. Chairman, let me answer the second question first. Well, this is to focus on the new senior secondary curriculum, its impact on student quality, how curricula should cope, and so forth. I understand that other institutions have not conducted similar studies. Other institutions have looked into other issues like the learning situation of students under the new senior secondary school curriculum. Well, Mr. Chairman, let me follow up on this first because time is limited. If the Bureau attaches importance to this, will the Bureau focus on one study to cover all institutions so as to come up with a more comprehensive conclusion to assess the student development in the future, rather than having one team in each institution? Mr. Chairman, our proposal this time actually came from the VTC, which is the main provider of vocational training in Hong Kong. They'd like to study the new senior secondary school curriculum, its plan, its impact, and so forth. If we look at this from another angle, we may want to know, under the new senior secondary school curriculum, how have students been impacted on, and what should be our future direction. Individual institutions may want to conduct similar studies as well. If the 8 UGC-funded institutions would like to conduct the same study, they can obtain funds. So, over $20 million per institution times 8 will be almost $200 million. Well, for the moment, only the VTC is interested. Other institutions have not submitted any timetable to us. Any time for my other questions? Sorry, no. Dr. Fernando Cheung. If we use the normal university study standard as a reference, the sum of money involved here is not small, is around $20 million, straddling 5 school years, 2014 to 2019-20, so 5 years. For the project manager, he will be paid $100,000 per month. Researchers, 3 of them, $50,000 each, working full-time. I wonder, well, I consider this a rather large-scale study. It doesn't look like a VTC study with their students as targets. You're not talking about interview targets that are difficult to approach. You're talking about your own students. If the information and your IT control system is good enough, then in the course of the study, a great deal of information can be obtained rather easily. So I really don't understand why you need so much resources and why it should be at such a high level. Frankly speaking, for your MIS, Management Information System, if it is good enough, it can trace the students in a very good manner, and then you can save a lot more money. Professor Cheung, money issue. I'd like to thank Dr. Cheung for his questions. We don't just need the students' background information, like family income, his academic results in the new senior secondary school examination, the education level of the parents, and in which academic year how much contact he had with the teachers, his extracurricular activities. In particular, for vocational training, is different from big lecture. We're really talking about a lot of manual instruction. So all these will require interviews. So it's a rather quality-based study. We would like to know the learning circumstances, the family background, the circumstances surrounding the student's studies. And in the education system, what are important, what can help the student, etc., etc. So personal contact is really necessary. I believe I've answered part of Dr. Cheung's questions. Mr. Chairman, do we need to vote on this item? I mean procedurally. Do they need to go to the Finance Committee? Yes. Well, you can discuss this item again in the Finance Committee. Dr. Helena Wong, $19.4 million, just for 1 year or 6 years? 6 years. 6 years. Mr. Chairman, just how many colleagues asked a lot of questions. I do not agree that the longitudinal study should be taken up by a 5-person or 6-person team under the VTC. We don't oppose the study. We don't oppose the study itself. We asked whether you need 5 to 6 persons for 5 years. Now you look at the study content. You can allow universities to bid. Can you draft a checklist and then ask the authorities to conduct an open tendering exercise to see who's interested. If eventually it's discovered that yours is the best, we can discuss the details. So I suggest you withdraw B, that is the longitudinal study. If you insist on this study, I'll ask the Finance Committee to vote on this separately. You shouldn't bundle the two together. For IT, we of course want you to advance with time. We won't block you by funding approval. But for the longitudinal study, the plan isn't drafted well. For example, number 11 is to improve counseling services and the living quality in the campus. Well, but they need to wait 5 to 6 years before you can improve your service quality. That shouldn't be the case. I think you should review your counseling services now, such that your students will have the ability to withstand adversities. You need focus groups. You should have understood your students' problems. You don't need to spend $17 million on this. I think you need to make sure that the study is useful enough to assist the students as well as teaching and learning. And then upon completion of the study, who will use the outcome? I think your draft plan here is rather rough. I think you better withdraw it so that we can see whether there are other universities who are interested in the project. Then you can come back and we'll make a decision. Mr. Tommy Chow. Mr. Chairman, I believe our colleagues have got a lot of questions on this project. I also have some views. I don't know how much is required for such a study to be conducted by outsiders. In fact, there are similar studies in secondary schools, for example, where the students go upon graduation, how much money they earn, and so forth. So I really don't understand the justifications for these $10 million. I just want to ask a simple question. Assuming that we grant this sum of money, what will happen in 6 years' time? Will you just drive them away, or will you sign, say, 5 to 6 year contract with them? Well, the allocation will be for the VTC, and there's a time limit. When the project is completed, the funding will also stop. It's a contract. A contract is a contract. So you're going to employ contract staff, am I correct? There'll be open recruitment. Well, open recruitment for this project. Then upon completion of the project, they'll be dismissed. Well, Mr. Chairman, even the Liberal Party has reservation over this project. I think in the Finance Committee it's quite likely that we won't support it. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung?
I'm wondering whether we really need so much resources for this study. Now, we have to understand this now. This is really necessary now, not only after 6 years. You have to do analysis. It is not possible to wait 6 years. Otherwise, what should we do with the students now? Because there are students coming in all the way, so are you going to turn a blind eye to them? Are you going to wait till there are other research results? Then those students won't be taken care of. We don't need so long time. Besides, do we really need to be so detailed? What is your hidden agenda? Are you planning to have a major reform? Just now, Para 11 is referred to. Do we really need to be so detailed in the study? I have so many question marks. Will you consider a more simplified way to carry out this study? Do you have hidden agenda? No, not at all. Thank you, Mr. Leung. Every educational institute will have to monitor changes about the students and see how we can help the students. When teachers contact the students, we'll have to see how to change the teaching method. At the same time, we will need a more comprehensive study with enough samples. We won't only look at individual students. We want to look at whether there are some new characteristics in the students under the new academic structure. Now, training is a very important area, so can vocational training change so that the new graduates under the DSE program can be developed in a better way? There are many manual things. Vocational training is not like traditional or conventional teaching. We have fewer mass lectures, but then there will be more technical, hands-on courses. We want to meet the needs of students. So that is the goal of our study. For those who cannot get into your institutes, what should be done with them? I think this should be taken up by the Education Bureau, not only by your council. There should be a more comprehensive view. Any response? Chairman, as I said just now, in the new senior secondary curriculum, we will gather people's views to see how well students perform under the new academic structure. May I spend some time to give some concluding remarks? Actually, when we go to FC, these are going to be two items. If you support the first item, the second item can be voted on separately. Secondly, the administration supports VTC's carrying out of the longitudinal study for 3 reasons. Number one, VTC is the most experienced body with the most resources in vocational training. They have deep understanding of vocational training. Secondly, this is a 6-year plan, but we are not only introducing improvements after 6 years. If there can be immediate improvement measures, VTC can make adjustments as necessary. And we're talking about 6 years. If VTC changes any part of its curriculum, they can also tie in with that plan right away. So that's why the government supports VTC's carrying out of this longitudinal study. Okay. So concerning proposed enhancement of IT infrastructure and services, we don't have much objection. Members tend to support it. About the longitudinal study on students, it seems that members have quite strong reservations. Many colleagues have spoken, so perhaps the Bureau and the Council, the VTC, should consider members' views and see how the plan can be revised. I think very limited information has been given this time. Perhaps the administration and the council can provide more information. Now, we don't have enough time. We have to move on to the next part of discussion. Chairman, may I clarify? Are they going to separate this longitudinal study on students in their recommendations or proposals to FC? As such as now, these are 2 separate items, but they will definitely table this to FC. After the meeting, they will consider members' views because the Democratic Party will vote down on this study. Okay, your point is clear. Next, let's move on to the next item, Statutes of the Chinese University of Hong Kong Amendment Statutes 2013. So let's invite the responsible officials and representatives of the CU to come in. Those who would like to speak, hands up, please. Quite a lot. Okay, Albert Ho, Mrs. Yip, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Mr. Tommy Zhang, Hon KWOK Wai, Chan Chi Chun, Hong Bik Wan, Leung Mei Fun, Chan Ka-lok, you're the third one, and Elizabeth Kwok. Tommy Zhang will be the last one. Thank you, Chinese U representatives, for coming. Professor Hui, do you want to give a brief presentation? So please be brief so that more time can be allowed for members to ask questions. Now, today we are talking about the amendment statute. This is related to the reorganization of the council. The work started in 2009. At that time, a special task force was set up, and then half a year consultation period or consultation was done. A report was submitted to the University Council. Now, I would like to present a few recommendations. First, the number of council members should be reduced to only 25 from 50 odd. And these 25 council members should be such that there will be a 2-to-1 ratio between. So in other words, there should be 17 external council members and only 8 internal members. For those 8 internal members, only 3 are ex officio members, including the treasurer, vice chancellor, and the deputy school head. So there will be voting among students and teaching staff. So there will be 2 council members representing teaching staff and 1 representing students. This report is unanimously endorsed by the council. The school council and the university realized that there is one controversy. That is the the council member representing the undergraduate. At first, the suggestion is a universal suffrage, but then the undergraduates are of the view that the head, the chairman of the student association should be that council member. We have been in communication with students, and in October last year, a proposal was submitted to the University Council that the chairman of the student association can serve as the representative in the school, in the University Council. Now, this year in June, this proposal was accepted or endorsed, and then in June, the University Council also endorsed this recommendation. In October, there is confirmation again. So today, we are here discussing with the education panel. Thank you. We have received 3 views, one from the Student Association, one from the Alumni Association representatives, and then today, there are 2 views from teaching staff members of the CU. Okay, Mr. Albert Ho. Okay, I have to draw a line here. After Elizabeth Kwok, no more. So there will be 3 minutes for Q&A for each member. Thank you, Chairman. I believe that you all know that the Student Association has a lot of views, and some time ago DAB met with the Student Association, but that day I was not present, so I only refer to the minutes. They are most unhappy about the point that since 2009 to June this year, details about the reorganization were not the subject of consultation with the students, and in June this year, the dish was already cooked. The students were only informed. So is this the truth? Well, if there are consulted some time ago. I want to know the timetable and the details of consultation. Are we talking about details of the reorganization or just a broad framework? Another point is students have to be full-time students for no less than 12 months. Okay, they must have completed 12 months of study before they can be eligible to be a council member. Now, for other councils, well, for example, teaching staff, they don't need to have served for 12 months before they can take part in the election. So is this rule really necessary? Okay, if this has to be amended, what is the procedure? Do we need to vote down on the whole thing? And if you want to table it again, how long will it take? Let me try to take the question. Just now I talked about a task force. When it was set up in 2009, they did a 6-month consultation. And at that time, there were papers prepared, a website was created, 4 consultation sessions were organized, and then after an interim report, there is a public forum, and a conclusion was reached. A report was submitted to the council, and after that, there were other views as well. And we are in contact with the university stakeholders to listen to their views. So my view is the whole consultation was very broad. And in the process, we listened to different views. There's exchange of different views. There is some compromise and deliberation. In the Chinese view, there are different stakeholders who may have different views. So we try to listen to different voices. And if you talk about the continuity of consultation, the Vice-Chancellor has been in contact with the undergraduate representatives, and they have exchanged views as to who can best represent the undergraduates. As regards this 12-month point, I think other colleagues may also ask this question. Chairman, since there will be other colleagues who will be asking this, I think he should give the point first. He should give the answer first. Yes, but there is the time limit of 3 minutes for each. If we carry on the discussion now, then it's not fair to other colleagues. I think time can be saved if he answers now. Mrs. Yip? Okay, my question is this. We have 2 views. First, about the 12 months rule. In other words, freshmen cannot take up the position, right? In the past, there's no such rule. In other universities, there's no such rule as well. It's good for freshmen to take up the position. When they get to higher years, they may be busier. So will that mean that year 1 students cannot even be head of student association? Within the constraints of decisions of the council, student association members can refer to information about promotion of university staff members and so on. Well, this may involve conflicts of interest or students' assessment, but it is not right to set restrictions on availability of papers. You don't even allow them to get access to papers. That is not reasonable. Okay, let me answer this point on some exceptional items.
Perhaps this is not in the statutes, but we do have standing orders. Why do we need a definition? Because sometimes the committees may look into the conditions of service like remuneration, salaries, or disciplinary hearings, whether or not a student should receive first-class honors, second-class honors, etc., etc. So we do need to have some reserved items. And then we need student participation in some of the issues as well. Under the practice of the Chinese university, in our college boards, faculties, as well as colleges, students can have a chance to participate in discussions. But of course, as I said, every now and then, it's not appropriate to have the participation of students. Why 12 months? Let me explain briefly. At first, the recommendation of the ad hoc committee to the council is that we should adopt a one person, one vote system among the students in electing a student's representatives. Now, who is appropriate to stand, who's not, etc., are clearly stipulated. In 2009, in paragraph 27A of the ad hoc committee's report, it is mentioned that those students who have come to the Chinese university for quite some time and have certain understanding of the university should stand. But you've already changed your system. It's no longer one person, one vote. Sorry, I cannot give you exceptional time. Next. Mr. Chairman, teaching and learning are complementary to each other. Well, Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, well, they're complaining about unfairness and unequal treatment. You just explained some of the reasons. You would like to have some reserved powers. So we can argue. You say a first-year student cannot serve on the council, but for the teaching staff, they can serve on the council even when they're in their first year. Well, I think you should post up the last sentence of Animal Farm on the door of each and every room in your university. This is unacceptable. Initially, I thought you're justifiable. When I went back to further consider the issue, I don't accept your proposal. The motto of the university speaks it all. All public-funded universities should not go against the principle of equality. So that's unacceptable. Please go back and review it. Well, you're telling that you've implemented the practice since 2009. It's now very difficult to change it. I can understand that point. But the difference between you and the students is very, very small at the moment. Why can't you accept the 4 requests of the students? The 4-year restriction, reserved powers, 9 colleges, inequality in power. Why can't you consider their 4 requests? Please go back and reconsider their proposals. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the LegCo to support you. That's my opinion. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his comments. We come here to listen to the views of the education panel. We'll bring your views back to the University Council in order to decide on the next step. Well, please go back and tell them that Mr. Leung Kwok-hung does not accept your proposal, and I accept most of the proposals of the students. And you can go back and tell them that Mr. Leung Kwok-hung wants them to rectify themselves. And you should tell them Leung Kwok-hung suggests that you should post up the last sentence of Animal Farm on each and every door of each and every room. Mr. Chairman, first of all, I have to declare that I'm a member of the Council of the Chinese University. The reduction of members to 20-odd is to improve efficiency upon trimming the membership. As for the Students' Association and a former council member, Mr. Look, put up certain queries. What about Article 4, bracket 6? You propose to add in the word member. I previously asked this question, but apparently I got no answer. It seems that the president of the Students' Union will no longer be an ex-officio member. The president of the Students' Union need not be appointed. So what will you do to resolve this major controversy? And then what about the professional consultant and associate lecturers or professors? How can you protect their electoral rights? I'll leave some time for you to answer my questions. And then the college heads, masters, faculty deans, or dean of the graduate school can mutually elect a representative. So how can you ensure that they can take part in all elections? As for ex-officio membership, only 3 out of 25 council members in future will be ex-officio members. As for the other members, they have to be elected or nominated, and eventually they need to go through a formal procedure. That is, the council will have to formally appoint them. We don't target the students. For the 2 students, whether they're undergraduate students or graduate students, they need to be formally appointed. 5 council members are also appointed from the colleges. As regards the consultants, or either they're full-time, either they're elected by the teaching staff or non-teaching staff. As for professional consultants, a year ago, they're redefined as teaching staff, so they'll be elected by the teaching staff. Well, you can seek another opportunity to follow up. Mr. Stephen Ho, well, Mr. Chen Chi-chun, I was very confused. He said that the statute as requirements, sometimes the students would be informed, they might be allowed to participate in the discussion, they have choices, but the right rests with you. And have you compared your university with other universities? What about the reserved powers? Is the Chinese university stringent or lenient? Have you drawn any comparisons? If you're already very lenient, we may pass a different judgment. And Mr. Stephen Ho asked you to go back and make amendments. It seems that you're saying that this is very difficult. So what's the workflow in your university? Well, there are 2 issues here. For the reserved powers, other institutions may not have this written clearly in their statutes, but then all these are in the standing orders, that's for sure. The ultimate decision rests with the University Council, and it depends on the case in issue. I think students' representatives can participate in the discussion of most matters. And just now I cited some examples where students will not be appropriate to participate, like discussion of staff matters. Now, this have already reflected the 2009 consultants report. It's not true that we've added something new after 2009. Professor Hui made it clear just now that the 2009 consultants report was totally endorsed by the then council. Every recommendation was accepted. So the consultants report has reflected the decision of the council. If there's to be any amendment, we need to go back to the council and refer members' views to the Council. We'll seek instructions from the Council. Once the Council has a decision, we'll discuss with administration on how to draft the amendments. And then we need a second reading by the University Council before referring to the Provost for signing. And there has to be Gazetto as well. That would take a year. Well, if LegCo members assist you in amending the statutes, will it be easier? Well, I'm not sure what LegCo members can do. What I know is within our university what our powers are. Well, we may need to go to the House Committee and set up a subcommittee or a Bills Committee. Well, which avenue is better, members can decide. I drew a line just now, but after drawing the line, a number of members entered the room and have raised their hands. I just drew the line then. Since they've come in, Ms. Sito, Dr. Fernando Cheung, and Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I would like to give them a chance to speak. So I'll draw a line there. Dr. Helena Wong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Similarly, as far as the major direction is concerned, I support this restructuring of the University Council. But I also have some reserved items. One of my reserved items is about the regulation that the first-year students must not enter the University Council. I oppose that because for the teaching staff and other staff members of the university, they are not subject to such a constraint. So please go back and consider amending this. As for the colleges, the students' unions of the 9 colleges would like to have one representative from each college for the council. They're actually proposing equal representation from each college. So please try to heed their requests. Well, let me go to your reserved items. The students did meet with me. They raised something for 9B1A. You're saying that students may not be able to sit on certain committees. If that's the case, in future, when the selection panel for the selection of the Vice-Chancellor, will the students be given a chance to participate? They're worried that they may not have a chance to take part in such major discussions. And then you mentioned leeway. For example, which class of honors a student should get. We won't argue that with you. But what about 9B3C? 9B3C covers reserved powers, income and expenditure, that is the budget, and matters related to other institutions. If you write everything into the budget, students' representatives won't have access to the information. So you're trying to disable them. You are actually taking away essential powers from the students' representatives and council members. Well, I'm an alumni of the Chinese University. I'd like you to have the support of the teaching staff, the administrative staff, and students. Please withdraw 9B3C as well as the 1-year restriction. And then please have college representatives.
Dr. Liang Meifen, last time I had the opportunity to discuss with the CEU about this proposal. I asked 2 questions. What are the college's views? You said that there is going to be 1 seat for the new colleges combined. And from 2009 till now, what do the student representatives think about this? In the past week, based on my understanding, I just returned to United College of the CU. I was a graduate of the United College. I also was part of their student association. Now, for the traditional 4 colleges, they are included, but for the new colleges, they have some comments. And this is different from my understanding that day. And the students are of the view that since 2009 till now, you haven't discussed with them adequately. So have you gone through the views from 2009 to 2013? In 2009, they came to HKALE and expressed their views to me. And in 2013, they said that there's nothing in the interim period. And they could only express their view only now. So if that's the case, I must say that I have reservation about this proposal because it's different from my understanding. And secondly, they asked for consultation. Within 1 week, I have got some information, and under these circumstances, I cannot agree to your proposal. So I want to give you a chance to give an account to all the differences I stated. Thank you, Dr. Leung. Concerning the colleges, for the new colleges and the existing 4 colleges, there are many differences in many areas. For example, in terms of their governance, in terms of their statutory status, the number of their students and teachers, there is big difference. For the existing 4 constituent colleges, there are 2,000 and above students in each college, but for the new college, the smallest, only has 300 students. So it's difficult for me to compare the new and old colleges. In the consultation process, we have to listen to views from new and existing colleges, and there's the need for some consensus or some kind of settlement. We reduced the number of council members from 50 odd to 25, and over 30 council members will be removed. So how are we going to do this? That is our biggest challenge. So this is a proposal after considering many views. And as regards the 12-month rule, that is not formulated behind closed door. We're not trying to limit the student representatives. In the 6-month consultation and also thereafter, we have gathered views, and that's our recommendation. But in 2009, the students already expressed their different view. Okay, next, Mr. Chan KWOK, Elizabeth Kwok, Tommy Zhang, Sid Ho, Chan Chiu Hong, and Wu Chi Wai, and I myself. Chan KWOK. Thank you, Chairman. I am an alumni of the CU. I graduated from the United College. I'm wearing this badge on the 50th anniversary. I hope that there will be united atmosphere and harmony among teachers and students and in the council. I am now teaching in another university, that is Baptist U. Last week, I returned to my mother school to take part in a new forum. I visited some new buildings, and the students distributed these leaflets at the train station, saying that the council is like a black box, and they are trying to remove or downplay the student status. I think we want to see that at the 50th anniversary, the student representatives' status and legitimacy can be respected by the university. Well, I guess the university respects that because on different occasions there are discussions with student representatives. I have many reservations. I've heard many views. When the student association elects a chairman, students will have a lot of opportunities to be prepared about discussing about school, university affairs. So do we really need a 12-month rule? I don't think so. Yes, they may have one more year of experience, but it doesn't mean that year one students are not experienced or they are not well prepared enough. That's not the case. So I think you can go back to discuss with the students. And as regards the appointed and ex officio members, there are 3 ex officio ones. The others are appointed. In the other university statutes, well, the chairman of the student association is a member, and there is not this term ex officio. Well, if that is a sensitive term, you can just state chairman of the student association. That's it. So these are my views. I don't really have questions for the university. I think LegCo members should give more room for the university to discuss this. We are outsiders. Even though we may be alumni, it is not in the best interest of the university for us to propose amendments. It seems that there are colleagues in this panel who are not in favor of these. But I don't want others to see that LegCo is intervening with the governance model of the university. You should go back to reconsider, but if this is tabled again as it is now, I think there is high chance that it will be voted down. Elizabeth Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I must declare that I am a council member of the Chinese U. I have heard about this reform for so many years. The organization is going to be streamlined. I support that. I have heard students' views, and many colleagues have expressed their views as well. I think I don't have much problem with the appointed or ex officio members, but is it fair and equal in the eyes of the students? It seems that the university hasn't really convinced students to accept it. It's important to have deliberation about the 12 months rule. I understand that it may take a long time for this to be amended. But if the whole thing cannot be endorsed just because of this, well, I think the reserved conditions or items should be discussed. We should understand what the students find acceptable and what not. We can discuss those that are not regarded acceptable. And if we have to go through the whole exercise again for another 3 to 5 years, that will be a pity. So I think the university can talk to the students to see whether a mutually acceptable option can be identified. Any response? Do you need any response? Any response, please? Thank you, Chairman. In 2009, when this report was endorsed, why was this tabled only in 2013 to LegCo? Because in the interim period, together with the Administration, Education Bureau, and the Department of Justice, we discussed how the amendment statute should be drafted. So it is a cumbersome work taking up 2 years. Every year there is new chairman in the student association, and every year we give students a briefing. So every year the relevant officials in charge know that the council may be reorganized, and they have discussed the minor details. But they understand that the drafting has not finished yet. They want to have further discussion after the paper is ready. And in May, June this year, the Department of Justice offered us a draft. So in June, we discussed this in the academic office, and at that time there was a discussion. At that time, I think that we have answered students' queries during that meeting. And after that, there was no follow-up until this table is tabled to this paper is tabled to LegCo. Now I understand that they are now putting forth stronger objections than before. Mr. Tommy Zhang, let me be fast. If the university wants more time to answer colleagues' questions, I won't ask too many questions. I want to declare that I am elected by LegCo to join the CU Council. And in 2009, when this ad hoc committee was set up, I was one of the persons involved. I have taken part in this process of coming up with this report. Sometimes I find it rather difficult in handling the work. Different chairmen have different views. Different chairmen of the student association may have different views. So I don't mind the actual approach. I'm sure we have to move forward. But if we want to ask the CU to amend things again, that may take 2 to 3 years. I'm not trying to threaten you, but if this cannot be passed, then we will have to maintain the status quo. There will be 50-odd members in the council. I don't see any problem for it to continue to operate that way because it has been in place for a long time. I understand and respect your views. Should university students, should that be the 12-month rule? Perhaps they will have to start to serve since September, and year 1 students won't be excluded. But we have to strike a balance as to whether it's a good approach. At least those students have stayed in the university for 1 year. At least they know the directions so that they can effectively work in the council. So we have to strike a balance among different things. Perhaps different people have different views as to what is fair and what is not. I support this proposal. I think a good balance has already been reached. Any response? Next, Sito, Ms. Sito. Thank you, Chairman. I support the justifications put forth by the Student Association in their letter, especially about the reserved items. In the future, the student representatives may be excluded from the discussion on election of Vice-Chancellor, about the privacy of the teaching staff, and also about whether some students will be dismissed. Well, the Student Association rep may not be allowed to take part. In order to be fair, I think there can be some exception clauses so that there won't be a lack of trust. And then all 9 colleges should have representatives so that the uniqueness of each college can be upkept. Now, the teaching staff has been consulted, but they are employees. When the management asks them, even if they have different views, they may not dare to voice up. For students, they will be brave enough to voice their opinions because there is no employer-employee relationship. Now, the university saying that the whole process takes 1 to 2 years, and now if this has to be changed, then the whole thing has to start again. Please don't treat us as rubber stamp. We are not, it is not mandatory for us to approve. Well, there will be a members' amendment, and then that will be voted by division, and you only win because of this undemocratic process or system. The CU is a subject of attention of different people, and you have good tradition, but then if you only win based on an undemocratic system, that is really a shame. Now, we have LegCo member serving in the school council, but then we are not told about what was done in the past 2 years. And now you are saying that the whole work will take 2 years. But, well, sorry, I don't want to be a rubber stamp. The CU has strong cultural heritage, and I don't want you to win because of an undemocratic political system.
Let me say something about the election or selection of the Vice-Chancellor. At the moment, students can already participate in the selection process. According to our statute, ever since students were able to participate in the academic secretariat, they already had a chance to participate in the selection of the Vice-Chancellor. So I believe in future, students can continue to participate in that selection process. Next, Dr. Fernando Cheung. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, as a teacher in the university, I've also served as a council member. In the council, if the appointment or dismissal of individual staff members, the approval of academic results of students, whether or not students can get certain scholarships, etc., etc. Such issues were actually not discussed in the council. Basically, the council will only be asked to formally endorse the decision. So I really have reservation over the proposed reserved powers. Why can't student representatives enjoy the same status as other council members? You may be worried that students don't understand the university enough, so you set this one-year limit. However, there were council members in the past who had never stepped into the campus of the Chinese university before they were appointed. I agree with Mr. Tou. Democracy is a very good tradition of the Chinese university. The present Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sam Zhou-yu, is very open-minded. If today you try to pass these amendments via an undemocratic regime, I hope you can think twice. Since 2002, you're the last university who is to undergo such amendments, and now it's 2013. So please go back and reconsider the details before coming back to us. I'd like to thank honourable members for their comments. I'd like to emphasize that the recommendations submitted to us today have actually gone through various consultation exercises. I heard about arguments or even compromises before a consensus was reached. The paper submitted to us was actually endorsed by the academic committee. It was read a second time by the council before coming to you. So we do have a very stringent procedure to work out these recommendations before coming to you. Are they perfect? I'll leave it to members to judge. Yet, I'd like to reiterate once again that in the whole process, we did work hard and we did try to listen to different sectors of the community. Mr. Wu Chi-wai and I are going to ask questions, but I'd like to discuss with you something. Apparently, we won't be able to finish all our agenda items today, and we do have representatives from the Hong Kong Examinations and Assessment Authority. Can I have your consent that we defer that item to the next meeting so they don't need to wait any longer? Any objection? No? All right, thank you. Next, Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Mr. Chairman, all of us want to streamline the structure of the university such that the decision-making procedures can be more efficient. I don't think anybody will object to that. Universities do pass on this concept of mutual respect to their students. That's a fundamental principle. On the basis of that consideration, the basic consideration of the students is all colleges should have the same mechanisms. They query why students should be restricted by the statute in terms of their powers and arrangements. Given that foundation, I think members present today have made it very clear that they would like the university to listen to the views of the students. Should we not have fairness, justice, and mutual respect? Can you amend your arrangement? And then, in future, when we discuss the bill, we can, of course, consider all views received. We can even move amendments. After listening for so long, I only heard the university say that the practice or arrangement had been in place for a long, long time. Other than that, the university has not come up with any convincing arguments to address students' queries, particularly about the reserved powers. Why is it that the students' representatives should be prohibited from reading certain documents or information? Well, if the university is telling us that it has doubts about the students, then that's a point that we should look into, because that indicates that the university does not quite trust the students' representatives. Now, this will damage the mutual trust between the university and the students. Now, this will undermine the future governance of the university. And now we see that the Senate has different levels of trust in different members. That's unacceptable to me. It's my turn. A couple of points here. The present arrangements, including the reserved powers. I note that the University of Hong Kong and the City University do not have similar requirements. Well, the Chinese university is the last to go through this exercise. All other universities have completed their exercise. Of course, you consider that the later the better, but then you should avoid too much discrepancies between your university and other universities. Today, I've submitted a paper to reflect the views of 2 staff members of the Chinese university. Now, one submission says that the arrangement of the council at the moment is that many council members only have a tenure of office of a year. Nevertheless, for the University of Hong Kong, apart from student representatives, all council members can serve for 3 years. That will allow council members to monitor the university with more continuity. I wonder if the Chinese Universities Council has considered this point. Thank you, Chairman. This was discussed by the ad hoc committee. In fact, among the 25 members, the chairman, the treasurer, the 4 members appointed by the provost, the 4 members appointed by the council itself, have a tenure of 3 years. Those members appointed by the college board and faculty board also serve for 3 years. As for other council members, they may need to take turn to serve. For example, the dean of some old colleges will only serve for a year and they take turn to serve. Otherwise, it may take 20-odd years for all of them to get their turn. And we don't rule out a renewed term. Well, back then, the ad hoc committee did discuss the issue. Now, many members have aired their views. Such amendments will be passed to the House Committee. It's likely that a subcommittee or a Bills Committee will be set up. After listening to so many views, I'd like the Chinese University to go back and consider the matter further. I suggest they discuss more with our members. Will you follow your original agenda in terms of date of Gazetto, etc.? I think that it's worthwhile for you to go back and reconsider. It seems that members' views just now were quite strong. Mr. Tommy Cheung said he supports you, but other members did have very strong views. All right, so much for this item. Final item on the agenda: mechanism of handling complaints against special schools. Can we invite the officials to come in? Who would like to speak? Well, some members are to depart. Let me remind this. As one agenda item has been deferred to the next meeting will have 4 items on the agenda. I'll discuss with the chairman what arrangements need to be made. There is a possibility of extending the next meeting. Otherwise, we may not have enough time to go through all the items. Mr. Chairman, it is impossible to have 4 agenda items for one meeting. Don't try to force the items through. Please discuss with the chairman. If necessary, please convene a special meeting to clear the backlog. Yes, I'll discuss with Mr. Lam Tai-Fai. All right. Those who would like to speak, please raise your hand. Dr. Helena Wong, Dr. Fernando Chang, and Mr. To. Any more? 3? And the Secretary, any supplement to the paper? Mr. Chairman, I think we can go directly into the discussion because you did say that you're in a hurry. Well, if we set 6:30 as the finishing time, we'll still have enough time because we've cut one item. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce the paper. But you said you're in a hurry. All right. A short briefing then. Well, Mr. Chairman, let me briefly introduce to members what the paper explains about how the Education Bureau handles complaints against special schools. There are a number of salient points here. All along, we attach importance to any complaint against any school, including complaints against special schools. And we've all along followed the established practices. If the education ordinance, the rules and regulations in terms of teacher registration, school campus safety, educational structure, like the number of classes, the number of students in a class, the allocation of school places, services provided by the regional offices, the Department of Education will directly take the issues up. If there is a possibility of breaching the education ordinance, we'll refer the case to the police.
If teachers show serious breach of the law or serious misconduct, and after the investigation by the Education Bureau and when there is no more appeal, then a decision will be made whether or not the teacher's qualification will be revoked. Now, schools are governed by school councils. If the complaints are about daily operation or internal affairs like the amount of homework, evaluation standard, rewards and punishment, discipline, lunch boxes, school buses, then the schools would be asked by the Education Bureau to take up the matters. And we will look at past performance and the seriousness of the issue, and we will do direct investigation. No matter whether the investigations are taken up by the school or by the Bureau, we will be seriously assessing all the information to make sure that the investigation is fair and just. Wang Pik Wan, Fernando Zhang, Sid Ho. Ms. Ho, please. Sorry, I would like to remind that this item is related to some complaints cases. However, the purpose of this meeting is not to discuss the cases themselves. So we are talking about the points arising from these cases. Ms. Ho, Chairman, there is this item for discussion because there are some complaints cases. I'm also a teacher. I am really shocked. Over the past years, all along, no physical punishment has been allowed, and there are now complaints about assault or improper body contacts leading to bodily harm. And in 2 cases, verbal violence was involved, and the complaint has been substantiated after investigation. We are talking about students in special schools. They may not know how to express themselves. And we are talking about breach of code by teachers, no matter whether we're talking about verbal or physical means. And if you talk about dismissal or change of positions, how can we make sure, is there a mechanism to make sure that these students cannot come into contact with the students involved? How can we make sure that the incident won't happen again? How can we protect the students? Can you let us know so that we can rest assured? Chairman, when we handle complaints, if there are cases that we know that physical punishment has been involved, then if necessary, we will refer cases to the police for investigation. We'll see whether the police will take prosecution action. We will look at the whole case to see what the teacher has done and what are the actual circumstances. There may be a court ruling after prosecution. In the Education Bureau, we have a working group to see whether it is necessary to take some actions about the teacher's registration. There may be cases that are not serious. For instance, we may not be talking about physical punishment or assault. Well, basically, we will ask the school council or the school supervisor as management of the school to take necessary follow-up action. So first of all, they have to handle the improper acts of the teachers. So they can, for example, give verbal warning, written warning, or they can terminate the teachers immediately. It depends on how serious the case is. And in the system, we will ask the schools to take appropriate punishment actions, and there should be enough supervision in school to make sure that the teacher will not make the same mistake again, and then the students will be duly protected. Dr. Fernando Zhang, thank you, Chairman. Of course, we won't assume that teachers will ill-treat the students, especially in special schools, because the students there have special education needs. They may have disabilities, but when these unfortunate incidents happen, we have to deal with them seriously, because there are these past complaints, and after a lot of hard work, the Education Bureau is taking the initiative to investigate, and there are complaints that have been substantiated. Now we have some worries. First, when will the Education Bureau willing to take up independent investigation? Now, when we talk about school-based management, it's difficult to have check and balances because in the school there is uneven power. The school principal and school supervisors have more power than the teaching staff, and teaching staff have more power than students and parents. And when we talk about unjust things in schools without check and balance, it's difficult. After the cases are substantiated, is there really an appropriate approach? At least there should be an apology or some kind of sanction or follow-up improvement, at least as in the case of the Philippine incident. So now I think the education ordinance and the subvention rules have been breached because in the rules, teachers are not allowed to exercise physical punishment. And in the subvention rules, it is stated that if there are teaching staff who are in the process of criminal investigation, if the matter, well, we are referring to para 62F, it's in English, it's in the subvention guide. Perhaps you don't have the information now. It is stated clearly there that the teacher in question should be suspended for no more than 14 days. If the investigation lasts more than 14 days, then in G, there's this point that the suspension will be extended. Now, I don't understand why these are not done. And, well, it continues to happen. And I would like the Education Bureau to explain. We are talking about the subvention guide or the education rules. Which department is responsible for enforcing them? Chairman, about the subvention rules or guides, perhaps I can ask the Permanent Secretary to answer. Chairman, well, it is stated that under certain circumstances, the teachers, well, the schools are teachers' employers, and then the school council or the SMC can decide to suspend the teacher's duties, or there can be some alternative arrangement with the teacher's pay. The SMC, as the teacher's employer, can make decision according to the circumstances. The Education Bureau has a role to play. We will look at whether the school's approach is reasonable. And for certain cases, we will look into the circumstances. If we feel that the SMC's decision is problematic, we will put forth recommendations. We will ask for improvement. As the chairman said, we should not dwell on cases now. Now, there may be criminal elements in some cases, and some cases may be investigated by the police. Now, if the Education Bureau supervises the cases, we will take into consideration a basket of factors because, for example, the nature of the case, the law enforcement agencies' actions, we will also give necessary instructions. We need some time to understand the whole cases. Today, you may not have seen any actions taken, but it doesn't mean that we have not done anything behind the scene. As such, just now, we will look at the whole case on a three-dimensional way, and then we will look at what follow-up action is needed. Investigation has been carried out, and these serious acts have really taken place. There's bodily harm done, and there is element of insult or prejudice or discrimination. Those teachers are still teaching in those schools. We are not referring to cases, but there are these incidents. So now there is this discussion item here. Now, the Education Bureau will have to look at whether the school has taken appropriate action. But if the Code of Aid is not followed, then what will the Education Bureau do? The students' well-being is affected, right? Dr. Zhang, your time is up. Now, Later on, I will ask the Bureau to continue to answer Dr. Zhang's question with my time. Chairman, do you need to extend this meeting for 15 minutes because this has to be decided on before 6:30? Okay, we can extend this meeting till 6:45. Thank you. Let me focus on confidentiality. Is this really necessary? Because as far as I understand, after an investigation report is issued, a report was given to Dr. Fernando Zhang because he has been following up special education well. But I don't understand why, after this report was given to Dr. Zhang, he is not allowed to publicize the report. Not even the parents are allowed to read it. Since you have already compiled a report, I want to know why the report has to be kept confidential. If you keep it confidential, it means that these incidents can continue to happen. Why do you want to do it like that? And have you already publicized the report now since the incidents have been made public? And now that it has been made public, what kind of harm have you suffered? Chairman, concerning investigations related to teachers and students, all along we have been keeping them confidential because there are details of cases involved and there are some people's privacy involved. We have given some information to Dr. Zhang and some parents because they have lodged complaints. So based on their complaints, we have given a brief account to them. It's not the whole investigation report. So they have complained, and we have done investigation. We have just given an account of the points that they have complained about. Chairman, I think the investigation should be made public after it's completed, especially when the case is substantiated. You should not protect the culprits. If you protect those offenders, then in other words, in the future, they can make the same mistakes again. As long as the victims have given consent, then I think the issue can be made public. If the victims don't give consent, if they just want to let the whole issue go, then perhaps, of course, that part should not be made public. I think you should check with the victims and the victims' parents, and you should see whether the case is substantiated. If so, then the report can be made public. If someone makes a mistake, Chairman, after investigation, he may have done something improper, then our approach is that usually we will ask the school principal to supervise. If the incident is serious, we will report to the police, and then the school may have terminated the teacher. In less serious cases, should we allow the persons some chance to improve or to repent? Or are you saying that everything should be made public whenever an investigation is substantiated? Is that good to the teachers when they go to other schools? Well, we have to consider their future professional development in the field. How can we make sure that the students will not be subject to the same mistake made by the teachers? Of course, this is important. We will monitor the school to make sure that there will be a system in the school to monitor that teacher's work. In some cases, if we think that the school is not doing good enough, then we have the right to appoint someone into the council to help us take up the work. Finally, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung and I myself. Chairman, if you allow, I want to turn to a broader point about the resources of special schools.
單講罰老師，但係唔講究竟其實老師佢係
If we only talk about punishing the teachers, and if we do not discuss teacher training, if we do not discuss whether or not there's sufficient manpower in the teaching staff of special schools, then the problem will continue. I believe resources are not enough. I hope that the government can give more resources to special schools. Undersecretary, well, we understand that in special schools, we of course have special students. Even in normal schools, we have students with special needs. And we need more resources for them. Some incidents are not acceptable. For example, language abuse or language insult. Human beings do have emotions. The teacher should professionally minimize emotional ups and downs as far as possible. Well, unless the incident is very serious, a one-off incident should not warrant a very heavy punishment, but will strive for more resources for teachers. In what way? What more resources will you give to the special schools? For example, every time or at this time of the year, we'll work on the budget, so we'll see what new services can be put in place. Overall speaking, we'd like to strive for more resources. If the government only considers the amount of money spent on education without an overall growth in resources, then money that should have been spent, say, in a particular aspect may be channeled to special education. So I'd like to know whether there will be an overall increase in resources. Mr. Chairman, I don't think I'm in a position to answer that. When the budget is announced, members will be able to know the full picture. I understand, but the Bureau should strive hard for that. We understand to strive for more resources for special schools and for students with special needs. We've always been working towards that goal. Just now, Dr. Fernando Cheung asked a question. Once we receive a complaint, what should be done to protect the children? Now, paragraph 6 of the paper says that if laws or other departments are involved, the Education Bureau will not intervene in terms of investigation. In such a case, the police may be taking certain actions, but the teacher concerned may still be teaching in the school, and problems may result. Should the Education Bureau not adopt a more proactive role? If the school has overreacted, then of course you have a role to play. If the school overreacts, of course, the teachers may suffer. But in this particular case, certain actions have not been taken. So we'd like to know whether the Education Bureau has more positive measures. Well, I understand the members' concern. Maybe I should defer to the Deputy Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If after investigation is discovered that a teacher is in the wrong and the case has been referred to the law enforcement agency for follow-up, does it mean that the Education Bureau will stop there without doing anything more? The answer is in the negative. The teacher continues to teach in the school. When a case has to be followed up by the police, or if a school warrants police intervention, will request the school to take a whole series of measures. Take, for example, how to monitor teachers. If a teacher repeats the mistake, what should be done? So if the school decides to let the teacher continue to teach in the school, we'll be very concerned. So investigation is investigation. If the teacher concerned continues to teach in the school, and if we receive a complaint, we'll ask the administration to then we won't need to wait for the police to complete the investigation. So does it mean that after referring the incident to relevant departments, the Education Bureau will still intervene in the investigation? It's not like what the paper says. The paper says that the Education Bureau will stop its action. Well, if an incident has been referred to the police, of course, our work in that regard, insofar as that incident is concerned, has stopped. But if the teacher continues to teach in the school, he will continue to do his work. He may come into contact with parents or students. If that teacher still performs unsatisfactorily, then as he has a track record, we'll ask the school to adopt a more stringent approach. For the Education Bureau, honestly speaking, if a complaint comes again, we'll know the history behind it. So we'll have stronger action. The strength of our action will differ. Dr. Fernando Cheung, your second round, isn't it? Any more? No? 2 minutes? On this point, I'm not satisfied with the reply of the Education Bureau. I think these are relatively serious cases. It may be professional misconduct, and it may even involve criminal liability. Of course, you have the Code of Aid. If a case is substantiated under you, if you still allow the teacher concerned to teach, it is problematic. Such a teacher has actually been arrested. He is under investigation, but you still keep a distance from the whole incident. It depends on whether or not the parent will invoke the Code of Aid to decide whether or not to take the teacher to court. I personally believe that at that stage, the teacher should not be allowed to teach any further for the time being. Well, maybe he can be suspended for the moment. We have a professional conduct institution which is actually a toothless tiger. It can recommend to the Permanent Secretary for Education what action needs to be done. I'd like to ask whether you allow the teaching profession to develop their own trade union to monitor their own professionalism and professional developments. Any more? Mr. Chairman, let me answer the first question. If there's an investigation, if there is a case in which the police is invited to investigate or arrest that person, if that person is arrested, he has to be held in custody unless he is on bail. So we need to discuss the details. But we cannot rule out all other possibilities. We cannot conclude that once that person is arrested, he will be prevented from teaching. He would not be allowed to teach. I think in the middle, there should be flexibility. we should be concerned about such a teacher. At the moment, teacher registration is done under the level of the permanent secretary. As for Dr. Fernando Cheung's point, it has nothing to do with the system. It's just a matter of leniency or harshness. Well, I think we can further study that. We'll look into the circumstances under which the measures should be tightened. But we'll have to speak to the teachers. Even if there is a professional body, similar problems may arise. Mr. Yip will understand that your yardstick may be different from that of others. And it also depends on the level of stringency adopted by society. Anyway, if we want to tighten anything, we have to discuss with the professional bodies. All right, so we discussed whether we should strive for more resources for special education. As for particularly serious cases, we would like to know how the Education Bureau can protect the interests of students. Perhaps certain measures can be adopted instead of referring everything to the school, although the school does have autonomy to a certain extent in its governance. So let the Education Bureau go back and discuss this. Well, we've basically concluded all the items on our agenda. Well, let me remind you that under our panel, there is a subcommittee on integrated education. That subcommittee considers it necessary to continue to operate within this term. They've prepared a paper. The paper has already been distributed to the panel on the 30th of October. After that, no comments were received. The subcommittee will submit the recommendations to the House Committee for consideration. Any other business? No? Thank you very much. You've insisted to the end. Thank you.